Hi, my name is Adam Parego. I'm a sales engineer with Zscaler. I wanted to give a quick demonstration of how easy and efficient it is to be up and running in full VPN access in a short period of time. So this environment, let me kind of show you what the lab looks like first. What I'm going to demonstrate is integration with Azure AD for my authentication, having a Mac as a demo laptop, which is going to be connected to Verizon's LTE network. And then I'm going to deploy a couple of what's called connectors into my environment, which are fundamentally VMs. And then I'm going to provide access to specific applications. My edge firewalls have a default deny inbound, and there's no access allowed other than, well, it's a default deny inbound. So what the connectivity requirements for this environment, the connectors will attach to the cloud via TLS. So you just make sure you have an outbound connection allowed for 443 out to the internet. And you can certainly shrink this down to the Zscaler and whitelist the Zscaler ones if you have outbound ACLs. The client will be, when I bring up the Mac client and log in, we're going to authenticate to Azure AD, and then the tunnel is going to be either TLS or DTLS respectively. And then what will happen is when I access an application, I make a request on my Mac for specific applications that are in my internal network, whether they're private IPs or a specific domain. And then what will happen, very similar to that of a traditional switchboard, is we will be the broker of that communication. So when the Mac requests a certain application that's supported on the inside, we will make sure you're authenticated, authorized to do so, and then we will establish a connection to the connector and kind of step out of the way. Very similar to that of an old operator switchboard to talk to John, let me plug you in over here, and you're all set up and ready to go until you disconnect the session. So basically what we're going to do here, we're going to set up SAML, we're going to deploy the connectors, and then we're going to show you that I have access to everything in a very short period of time. Okay, so I have three specific tabs open here. I have my ESX environment, or ESXi environment, my Azure AD, and my private access. From an IDP perspective, we're going to focus on Azure AD. We support all SAML out there as well, ADFS, Octoping, Centrify, all that good stuff. But for the purpose of this demo, we're going to talk about Azure. So to set this up, I'm going to start with private access. I'm going to go under my IDP configuration, and I'm going to add, let me get rid of this one first. I'm going to add an IDP configuration, and I'm going to call this Azure AD, IDP. I'm going to select my domains, next, and now I'm going to pause. But first, I'm going to grab the metadata that I'm going to be uploading into Azure. So I'm going to call this demo ZPA. Now I'm going to jump back to Azure, and I'm going to add a new application. So Enterprise Applications under Azure Portal, new application, and I'm going to search for it. I'm going to go to Zscaler Private Access. I'm going to add it. Now, while this is adding, I'm going to jump over and go ahead and deploy my connectors. Basically, I'm going to create and register a new VM, deploy an OVA or OVF template, call it Demo 01, and then I'm going to drag my OVF template right into here, which I've already downloaded from our site. Next, I'm going to assign it to my internal VLAN because that has DHCP enabled. Next, finish. And for the sake of argument and efficiency and N+1, I'm going to go ahead and do that again and deploy a secondary one. Next, call this Demo 02, drag over, next, VM network, next, finish. So right now, these will be deploying and they'll automatically come up once they're officially deployed. Let's go ahead and jump back to private access and get this configured. Azure AD and get this configured. First thing you're going to do is assign users and groups. So I'm going to go ahead and add my username, which is here. Select, assign. You can select your groups if you want to and things like that, but basically you need to give access to a user or group to the application which we're defining now. Once that's done, once I've added users, I'm going to click on single sign-on. We're going to select SAML because this is a SAML-based sign-on. Now we're going to upload my metadata, which I downloaded from Zscaler. Add. And then the only thing we need to do with this page is I want you to copy this sample link here, paste it here. And the only thing we're going to change here is domain equals example to domain equals whatever your authentication domain that's going to be supporting this needs to be. All right. We're going to save this configuration. And once it's saved, we're going to close it out. And then if it prompts you to test it, just say, no, I'll test later. Now we're going to download the metadata under option 3 for this specific application. We're going to call this Azure Meta. I'm going to download that. Once that's downloaded, I go back to private access, and I go ahead and continue my configuration of my IDP. I click play here. I'm going to upload my Azure metadata, save it, and then that is pretty much it. Let's jump back over there. So I have my Azure AD IDP. I have all my certificates, my sign-on URLs, and everything related. So authentication at this point is complete. So let's jump back to our connectors and see where they are. Okay, so they're up and running. I'm going to open these consoles respectively because there's a couple things we're going to do. I'm going to bounce to PuTTY because we're going to paste something in here, and ESX console doesn't really help or is not beneficial or doesn't work with pasting. So I'm going to come back to my private access. I'm going to go to connectors. This is where I'm going to define connector provisioning key, and we do this by way of a wizard. So I'm going to click add connector, and I'll walk you through what these are. You're going to either choose an existing provisioning key or going to create a new one. For the purpose of this demo, I'm going to create a new one. The certificate we're going to use is a certificate that is an option to be selected. In this case, I'm calling it Soho New Cert. Next, and basically it creates a cert or a key based upon that cert. So a connector group is what's going to happen. What will happen is in a connector group, we will logically group your connectors together. There's some load balancing algorithms that go into place, some high availability that goes in there. But once they're in the same group, they share a common goal and support a certain common set of applications. You may create a different connector group for like Azure apps, or a different connector group for AWS apps, or whatever you want to do. But basically, this associates a group of connectors together to support specific applications. Demo connector group. So for this case, we can have one. We're not going to put anything in Azure or the cloud now, but we'll just create one group for the purpose of this. So we always have to enter a location. I'm out of Raleigh, so we'll select that. Click next. And then we're going to give, this is the provisioning key name. The key is basically a certificate file, so to speak, that has, that is a key that associates your connectors to tie into Zscaler and specifically your instance. So I'm going to call this demo key. And I could do a maximum reuse time. I always do 10. If I needed to add to this, meaning if I grew my capacity more than 10, I can just edit this and add more. Next, save. Previous. Apparently that is there already. We'll call this connector group. Let's just call this demo group because there is a name conflict. Next, save. Okay, my key name's the same. Demo key lab. Next. All right, so here's my key. Basically, I'm going to copy this and have it in my clipboard because this is what's going to enable the connectors to talk to the cloud. So I copy this, click done, finished. And as you'll see, there's now connector groups. My new demo group 01. And then my connector provisioning keys, which is demo key lab, which is the new one. So you won't see any connectors here that are new. These are existing ones I have already deployed, but you won't see any of the new ones for the demo until they actually connect to the instance. So having said that, let's go into the server groups. A server group basically associates connector groups which can associate to applications, and you'll see as we define this. But right now, we're going to create a server group. I'm going to call this demo server group, and I'm going to associate the connector group to this server group. And what this does, you'll see that we'll associate a server group to either an application segment or an application group. And it pretty much says that application or application group support is connected to the server group, which is connected to the connectors. All right, so that's there, that's there. So now it's time to configure the connectors. So under the consoles, I'm going to log in with my default credentials if I can type right. I'll go to this one first. And as I alluded to, these are on DHCP, so they should already have an address. Let me sudo into both of these. All right, let me get the IP addresses of these. Config. So I got .150 here. And if I can get to my other group, if config, this is .151. So on these, I'm going to spin up SSH, the SSH daemon, because as I alluded to, pasting the key into this through the console doesn't work. System CTL start SSHD, and I'm going to go over and do it here. System CTL SSH start SSHD. Okay, so that's done. Let me open a couple PuTTY windows. New session. 172.16.254.150. Admin Zscaler. Okay, that's 150. Close that window. New session. 172.16.254.151. All right, so these are done. So let me sudo into these. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and change my directories in here. This is where we're going to apply the key. CD to opt, Zscaler, var. CD opt, Zscaler, var. All right, here I'm going to create a file that's called provision underscore key. I'm going to insert, and I'm going to paste that key I just copied, escape, right quit, and the same thing here, vi provision underscore key, insert, paste, let me repaste it. Key. Lost it in my. And I'm going to copy this key again. Copy. Escape. Right quit. All right. So let me show you the current status of these. So system CTL status, ZPA. What you'll see is a lot of red here. So basically, when the connectors come up, they're going to already try to phone home and get provisioned. If they don't have that provisioning key there, there's no authentication for the connector, so it's not going to work. So we need to just restart the service at this point. Just to give you a status, CPA connector. All right. All right. So now I'm going to restart the service. System CTL. Restart, CPA, connector. And now these are restarted. I'm going to do it over here as well. Now, if I do the status, you'll see that that's changed. Now they're phoning home. They're getting time synchronization and all that good stuff. Now, once they phone home, we'll start seeing them over here. So as you see, there's two new keys out here, Demo Lab 01. Demo Lab 02, it's been up for 0 hours, 0 minutes. My IP address, 172.16.254.150, 172.16.254.151. Now keep in mind, I did not put any inbound firewall rules. This is all establishing that TLS connection out. That's where we do the management, and also the data that comes back in to access applications come over that tunnel as well. So no inbound access, no exposure to appliances or any type of target footprint exposed to the outside world. So that's done. Now all we got to do, we have authentication done, we have our connectors deployed and operational. Now we just need to configure an application segment. All right, so these are some existing browser access apps I've defined, but we're going to create a new one just specifically for this. So in my environment, I'm going to just call this Demo Access Full VPN. And then there's two sections here you need to fill out. The applications themselves, these are the actual destinations. So I have a subnet in here. And I also have a domain. So that would be *layer3monkey.net. So, and then I'm going to specify the ports I'm going to allow access to these. So in this case, we're going to open it wide open. Traditional VPN replacement. All right, so what I've just done here is I said anything that's going to either 172.16.254.0 or this domain, for all ports, we're going to do a policy to allow access to this, right? So this is full-blown access to all my enterprise resources, regardless of where I may be. So you can shrink this down certainly to like specific ports like 3389 or SSH, or you can create different groups and things like that to do that. So we're going to click next for everything, continue. Now, this is where we're going to add a segment group. A segment group is a logical grouping of applications where you can say IT apps, and you can define apps and associate them to that group. So I'm going to call this All Access Pass. I can give it a description or whatever I want to do. Click next. The server group. Now, this is where we associate that demo group I just created, which associates the connectors, and it brings that and connects those applications I just defined to the connectors that's going to support it. Click next, save. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and click edit policy. Right now, a standard VPN access, I'm going to allow all users, let's say we're just reactive mode, I'm going to say all users that are authenticated to any applications, to any segment groups, from any client type, for anything, we're going to allow access. We can certainly shrink this down to be specific on, like if you had like a group of IT applications and you want to associate groups that are come across with SAML membership, SAML attributes being like a group membership, we can say this SAML attribute equals IT admins or something like that. You can shrink it down and be more prescriptive and restrictive of application access. But for the most part, the purpose of the demo is all applications that I'm going to be able to access, providing I'm authenticated. All right, I'm going to save this. Now, a couple things I'm going to do. Right now, at this point, we are 16 minutes into this, and I have just enabled full VPN access for anybody that has a ZApp client to access to all my applications. So I'm going to do what's called a live log, where I can look at the activity on a regular basis of all activity. So we're going to go ahead and jump over to, actually we'll do diagnostics. Let's go to live logs. I'm going to jump over to my Mac, and then I'm going to show you the connectivity. Okay, pivoting over to my Mac screen. So right now, as you can see, I have my ZApp opened. I want to show you kind of my IP addresses and what I'm coming across as. 174.248. That's a Verizon LTE connection, just to show I'm not trying to trick the system. I'm going to go also try to log into some of my hosts. SSH 172. Again, these are applications I have defined. SSH 172.16.254.254. And obviously I can't get to that. So the whole idea here is now I'm going to log into ZApp and I'll be able to access resources that I otherwise could not. So I'm going to go ahead and authenticate, open my Z app. I'm going to get my SAML prompt, enter my SAML password. Yeah, yes or no, whatever the case may be. It's going to register my device, and Z app is going to fundamentally start. Now, let me show you the Z app and what that looks like. Once a user logs in, you should see a little private access enablement and showing it connected. And once it connects, you'll see that it'll change the status. I'll show you the broker you're connected to as well as the time connected. This is typically an automated or very rapid process, but I'm an LTE and it's not the fastest thing at the moment where I'm at. So it's logging in now. And you should be, there we go. So now I'm connected. I'm connected to this broker in our cloud. Total bytes sent receive is none. So let's go ahead and try that SSH again. All right. So as you can see, now I'm in my core router, or core switch rather. I'm working like I need to. Now I can come over here again. My IP addresses should not change. Oh, actually, it will change. Oh, no, it won't change. Sorry. They should still be the same. But now I can go back to my web browser where I otherwise couldn't. HTTPS 172.16.254. This is my web interface for my router. Go ahead and proceed. And also, as that's coming up, let me kind of show you that now I can access all things. It's not just limited to web applications. So I'm going to connect to a server. So let me connect to my Windows server. I have not logged into a domain, obviously, so I should get prompted for authentication. So in this case, and you can see all my shares on that specific server, and I could like mount that one, right? So once it's connected, obviously, I can browse those resources respectively and have access to my Windows-based stuff. So it's not just limited to Windows or SSH or whatever, or 3389. You can do remote desktop. The sky's the limit. So this is a true VPN replacement. Now, let me bounce back to my other screen and kind of show you what those logs look like. Share. All right. So here is where the log that shows where I accessed my SSH after I connected. Shows me the policy, the source IP, the Zen I'm going through, the broker I'm going through, the connector I'm connecting through, and then the application itself. And that's it. So we're at 17 minutes, 30 seconds. And I have enabled full VPN access to my environment, integrated SAML with Azure AD, deployed connectors to support up to 1 gig of throughput, and that's it. So in closing, thank you for watching. I just want to say that it just works, and it works really easy. And as you can see, it only took 17 minutes as opposed to days, weeks, hours, and months. Thank you for your time.